There's going to be a contest in 2027, a very robust, very intense, a scorched-earth political warfare will unfold. Politicians are ghosts. I keep telling you that. If you move them this way, they're shadowy terrier figures. They move the other way. You can find there's a certain kind of movement. So for ADC hesitating to pronounce unequivocally that the presidency is zoned to the south is a problem. It doesn't need a Hakim Baba to tell the world that if you have a Bola Tinubu as a president from the south, he needed someone from the south for another 4 years to terminate in 2031. If you don't do it and have a northern guy to be the candidate of ADC in 2027, bingo, you are losing the entire south. It doesn't need, I said it on television many times. There's no way a northerner can win 10% of the vote in any of the 17 states in the south today. Whoever you are, whoever you manufacture as a running mate, that's why P2B knows it. He can't be a running mate to anybody because his support structure base will crater completely. So you need a southern guy in order to do what? Diminish the import of the southern solidarity.
Our guest today is Professor Udenta, founding National Secretary of the Alliance for Democracy, literary scholar, author, pro-democracy activist, and currently the Director General of the African Writers Institute in Abuja. Now, let's get right into it. What's your opinion on the state of our nation, the state of democracy in our nation? Give us a brief.
It's a wide-ranging, panoramic view about the state of a nation, the state of its democracy. Some may tell you that the democratic process or democratic order is fragmented. Some can tell you it is rebuilding itself and reforming itself, depending on how you look at the trajectory of this evolution. At the level of fragmentation, you may look at one very important signpost: lack of elite consensus. In 1998-99, when we formulated the grand design for the military exit from power and the reconstitution of a democratic order, there was understanding that the elite must come together in order to build a national framework for understanding, given that period of convulsive political contestations, the death of Apache, the death of Abiola, the annulment of joint intervention before then. For example, there was understanding that power has to shift to the south. And indeed, there was even a understanding that the presidency should be micro-zoned to the southwest as a compensation. There was Obasanjo and Falaye became contestant in the order. And when Obasanjo won, what did he do? He created an inter-party office where the political party can come and clear their problems and their difficulties and their disputes and their, their worries and their anxieties about the new democratic order. He even appointed the chairman of APP, one of the political parties there, as the special advisor in that office. Brought on Kubola of my party, Alliance for Democracy, in office, and did a whole lot of things suggestive that the government of the day was mindful of the frictions in the country, the fault lines that could likely explode, and the diversity of the nation. Today, that story is no longer the same narrative. You find a ruling party, the APC, intent on total grip in power, intent that the power must remain where it is, intent of even shutting down democratic conversation. You find that in various levels of dismantling guardrails of democratic governance. You find that in civic space that are shrinking. You find that the media that is under intense pressure given the cyber, security laws. You find that the political parties that are fragmenting, and you find that even in labor union that seem to be tame. And then recently we're hearing that the Vice President, Shetima, made a declaration in the Villa a day or two ago, or some time ago, that the presidency is actually shut down for anybody 2027. Whoever is contesting against the president is either completely a fool or an imposter, sort of. That could be the state of our democracy. But there's another story to it. As the parties themselves are under intense pressure, PDP is under intense pressure, being a legacy party, being a strong opposition party, now caught up in a legal quagmire. SDP seem to have gone separate ways in terms of its fragmentation. Labour Party may be reconstituting itself given the latest legal ruling, and then ADC seems to be, bouncing, with an aggressive spirit that people are looking for towards it and saying, okay, is that where to go? Is that how we're going to build a new direction in terms of opposition party politics? So how do you look at it? It could be fragmenting, it could be reforming, it could be rebuilding, there could be a rebirth or regeneration somewhere down the line. The contest for 2027 will determine clearly and directly the direction of our democratic order.
Brilliant, Prof. You are a founding member of the Alliance for Democracy.
Sure.
As you are even the National Secretary, as I stated in my introduction. And that party was in opposition at the federal level for many years. And there were no attempts, overtly to muscle opposition political parties during that period.
I can tell you what happened. In 1999, when AD smashed through the Southwest predictably and got almost everything there, the then President Obasanjo didn't even win his ward, to the best of my knowledge. So it was an embarrassment that he could win virtually the rest of the country, or substantial parts of the country, demographics and geographies of the country, and then was roundly beaten in his own domain, his own base on the Southwest. So he needed to correct that in 2003 to show I'm a viable presidential candidate, not because somebody imposed me on the people, on the elite, them through the elite on the people. I have a local content that is authentic and legitimate. So pressure was actually being mounted on AD, but not in this kind of fashion we are witnessing today, to say, why do you have to have a candidate in 2003 when we could preserve the infrastructure of your governance at the subnational levels, retain your 6 states as governors, retain the bulk of the Senate, and then the House of Representatives and State Assembly, but deliver the zone to the president to show him to the rest of the country that he has a home he can call his own. So the party now went into an alliance on its own. It wasn't compared to. He took that decision, strategic decision. It became ultimately an endgame decision to go to that alliance and not to feed a candidate in 2003, to embrace the PDP and the president, to give base to their son, who then with his own people said, go and take it all. So the president then told his people, the PDP, don't stop at helping me. Go straight to every state and take it. Only one state survived. That's Olawale Tinubu, governor of Lagos State.
And like you say, the rest is history.
His history. He fought like a lion and retained his seat. The other 5 governors went up in flames.
But where I was going with that story, or that background, that was that then you could see from your narrative, you could see the approach of former President Olusegun Obasanjo. Even with his military background, he didn't come out to hollow out or destabilize opposition political parties, because then we had the Alliance for Democracy, ANPP,
as it then was called.
Exactly. Now, contrast that with present situation where the Labour Party is destabilized, the PDP almost, dead.
Not dead, has a legal challenge. Legal challenge.
Deep fissures.
Because
deep
if you
fissures.
don't sort out the legal problem,
Exactly.
politically the party can't
Exactly. Now, a situation where all of this situation has, resulted to, as of today or tomorrow, we would have practically a one-party state. What is responsible for this state of, almost sliding into a one-party?
We are not going to slide into a one-party state. The country is too complex for that. It's too complex. As weak as the infrastructure you find in most of the other, opposition parties, may well be. And as
sorry, Prof. Sorry to interrupt you. So all this goes on in these opposition parties, are they just natural cause of things, or there is an invisible hand orchestrating?
Like the first question he asked, and I said some dimension to the analysis may be fragmentation, immobilization, collapse, or incoherence of his political order. But it could be regeneration, it could be rebirth, it could be painful rebirth and recalibration of that political order. Only time will tell. But to much more directly tackle the second question you placed before me, the environment has changed. And I concede that sometimes I, even as an analyst, as a public intellectual, we misread the political environment and come to wrong conclusions. I remember David Axelrod when either Hillary Clinton lost to Trump the first time, or then Kamala Harris lost to Trump the second time, said, if you're a political consultant, you're an operative, a strategist, there are 2 things you have to learn. Don't be smug in self-assurance that you won. Don't be stupid because you lost. So you're not stupid because you lost it. You got your analysis wrong. And don't be too overly yourself because you got it right. A lot of us, including me, who's a deep-rooted scholar and intellectual, may have thought that the political behavior of the elite in 98, 99, it would be exactly the political behavior of the elite in 2004, 2005, 2006. That's not the truth. You ask the question about why was PDP unable to, unwilling to, or incapable of doing exactly what the APC is doing? Because in the Southwest, they had an affinity apparatus that the president respected in many instances dreaded. He had Naija very much alive. He had Uncle Bola, even though he was incumbent, he was still an independent-minded person, calling the party PDP. And there was a quarrel that you came here to chop, and you're abusing us even as a minister. He had Papa Abraham Adesanya, the leader of the Yoruba nation, and a lot of a cast of leaders he can push. So the president was mindful of that. So it was important for him now to find models of negotiation to say, how do I deal with these parties? Not simply smash through them, destabilize them and destroy them. That's why he said, look, let us reach an understanding. You don't run for the presidency, you run for every other subnational positions. And when the time came for the party to do the needful, and they crumbled, as I said, Bola Tinubu, governor of Lagos, they stood his ground, mobilized the people, were people prepared to take extreme measures to protect his mandate, and he did. So he defied the time. That's a character. He can say he has the nerves, the guts, what they call the intestinal fortitude. No matter how his governance model now is, no matter how much he's failing in many directions, had intestinal fortitude to put his feet down and say, I'm not going anywhere. Take other ones and one or two other examples. Former Vice President Atiku, was virtually forced out of PDP. He didn't go quietly. He entered AC. He became a candidate of the party. His office was declared vacant. He fought the president and to stand to the Supreme Court and won. Remember that Prof. Who had to suspend the old ballot papers printed and quickly had to go and print another one. Ojikano, former governor of Abia State, was forced out of PDP. What did he go? He went to Abia State. He went to the southeast and created a new formation called the PPA and won 2 states there. Can you contrast that with the character of the governors of PDP? Can you contrast that? So it's not only on one side of the story, the pressure from the outside, from the ruling party to intimidate everybody. What kind of resistance are you putting on ground? What kind of intestinal fortitude do you have to say, enough is enough? This country is ours. It's a democratic country, federal in nature, and diverse, in terms of the way and manner our whole processes are constructed.
You've helped me to give, a very broad overview and make, my question, quite simpler. You touched on something very instructive and very poignant here in terms of the politicians, but then looking beyond the politician, the social strata, the higher echelon of society, the Olaniwun Ajayis, Abraham Adesanyas, the leader of the Yoruba people, Ayo Adebanjo, a strong civil society advocate. Look at men such as that. So, sir, don't we have such men again that somebody like those kind of men? Sorry, Prof. A military dictator in the person of Obasanjo feared them. Yes, he couldn't trample over them. He couldn't ride roughshod over them. So he had to apply military strategy, the cunningness of the military, to deal with them, to deceive them and capture the Southwest. That is one. Secondly, sir, the caliber of politicians in the person of Bola Ahmed Tinubu as governor of Lagos State, who looked the president of Obasanjo straight in the eyes and said, no, you can take anywhere, you will not take Lagos State. You can seize, you can withhold local government funds, I will not buckle.
Absolutely.
What has happened? Where are the men? This kind of men.
It was not only in the Southwest, even in the president's Obasanjo's party, the PDP. Exactly. He had to negotiate outcomes beyond the Southwest.
The Tony Anenis of this world and all these other people.
Name all of them. Bamanga Tuko is alive but weak now.
Sunday the rest of them.
Adamu Shiroma.
Exactly.
During me who eventually died.
What happened to Nigeria, sir? Where are all these men?
The point is that these people then came from that breed of political class with a clear strategic vision about what politics is, about service, governance to the people, about connectedness to the people, about the organic interplay of forces that will help shape a political system, a political tradition. It's not all about money or resources or whatever you can grab or you cannot grab. No. It's about identity and about name and moral imperative and moral clarity in power. Come to the Southeast, the late Ato Wangpo, even Chubo Kadibo, look at Alexis Kwame, former vice president. These are people with towering pedigree. People who can put their feet down and say, Mr. President, you are right here, you are wrong there. Enough is enough. The country belongs to all of us. Such men and women are now in short supply. Let's understand that. That's what I say. As a consultant, as a strategist, I could get it wrong that a enormity of this pressure may be coming from outside. Look at the statement of the vice president. You do not even need to have any contestant in 2027. Let the president just have a shoe in and then can continue 2031. Somebody at the end of the party said, sorry, that's not the way the game is played. But one can even understand his own mindset. The situation in the country now, this, the issue of terrorism, Christian genocide, CPC designation and so on, incredible, pressure is being mounted on the ruling party in the north. Do you have a Muslim ticket? Do you have a Muslim Christian ticket? Even people like Dogara, former speakers coming on the fray, there's negotiation going on there. There wasn't an attempt not to adopt the vice president sometime back. I was among those who said, no, that's not the way you run this, even though I don't belong to that party. You respect that office and allow the president to make a choice somewhere down the line. So maybe he's mindful that he needs to speak inside the villa to the loyalists of the president to assure them of his availability and almost like fanatical devotion to the cause. The problem for me is not even what the ruling party does, it's what the rest of the people do. If you simply buckle under that kind of intense pressure or immense pressure, if you speak that you've empowered, are not empowered. Look at even the Unity Fountain. It's gated by the DSS. That's why Jonathan permitted the Break by the Gears campaign that forced it to take place. They were there mobilizing every day, every week, every month. Nobody says that people who are big in the system, morally conscious and civic-minded, should not even go there and say, unlock this place for us. It's our home. It's our space to mobilize, to agitate peacefully and constitutionally. It is not happening. Labor that started with a fanfare at the beginning of this journey, this current journey from 2023, suddenly seems to have been more of rhetoricization of the struggle as against implementation of practical measures to protect the interests of workers and the broad mass of the people. So, if you're looking for the kind of men and women that were available 26, 27, 28 years ago, who were forged from the cemetery of struggle, their soul was fired by that contestation with the military. We suffered detention, some suffered exile, some suffered death, irreparable damage to businesses, career, and so on. So when it came out to a democratic order, it is simple business. If we could stand firm to the military and defy them, my last detention occurred with about 60 officers, interagency, pointing their guns at me. I was in the booth for 7 hours. Detention camp for 2 months on the cement floor. Tell me what any politician can put before me that will frighten me. There's nothing. But some of these new political guys in the system, they didn't pass through what we went through. So they don't have that sense of history, that sense of agency to say we can fight and protect and die for democracy. Sometimes politics is actually a complex business. Let us understand that. If you take PDP, for example, as a party that started big in 1998, ran the country for 16 years, if I'm not mistaken. Yes. Lost its way in 2015. Now one can say, unless it recovers, it has become almost like a shadow of itself, crippled by legal, quagmire challenges, and then a whole lot of run on its infrastructure by governors, senators, and reps, and the rest of them. And you look at some governors who took a decision. There may be some local reasons why such decisions were taken. Before I lumped everybody together, for example, I'm from Enugu State. My governor, Peter Mba, is one of the leading lights of PDP before the defection to APC. The moment he did that, I didn't hesitate. I'm not a member of any party, but I said, what's the point in going to a party, APC, that apparently is not doing well at the center, and in many other the states in the federation, and apparently you are doing very well in your state. But I spent 3 weeks during the Christmas and New Year break at home. For the first time in 6 years, I really went to spend time with my people and put my ears on the ground and said, okay, maybe the governor's own attitude is on twofold. What is the technocratic mindset that is disruptive in terms of what Enugu has become? If you've been to Enugu recently, I don't know, it has become in terms of innovation, instead of infusing the new spirit in terms of vision, grand vision and grand strategy of bringing the state back into contestation at the level of even global best practices. Infrastructure, industry, and many other things, schools, education, etc. So how do I combine technocratic zeal and performance with political, acuity of political, strength and solidity or penetration? Maybe APC, maybe the direction, even as unpopular as it is in the state. Maybe PDP may not recover in time. Maybe the legal challenges are enormous. Maybe I needed to connect to the people, their soul, to this new political order. In addition to rebuilding the state in terms of this innovation and this direction in which technology is taking it. That may well be. So these are the questions you may have to ask in Enugu, in Rivers, for example, where Fubara may have, after being restored, because simply say, I stay back in PDP and still do the rough with my mentor and my former boss, the Minister of FCT. Or I go to APC, where I can seek sanctuary and protection from the presidency, from the party apparatus, to say, this man is after me, please get my back. So the governor of Enugu State has simply said, if I'm going for a re-election, and the legal challenges in PDP are so enormous, Is it possible for me to use that platform? How about ADC? Maybe too new in the block, in the state. Is it really deep-rooted? How about the ruling party that can provide protection up above? The same time, organically with e-registration, rebuild infrastructure on the ground, make it a lot more popular to the people. So looking at my performance in terms of reaching the revenue threshold, in terms of innovative development in education, in infrastructure, in airline and everything, it may be possible to connect the dots and win my re-election resoundingly. 2031, there could be a recalibration where those who rush to APC may come back to the regional political infrastructure base.
Brilliant. You alluded to my next question earlier, but just in passing. Vice President Kashim Shettima on Friday at the 15th NEC of the APC, held at the Villa, stated openly that it is suicidal for anybody to even wish or think that they would compete or contest against the President Bola Ahmed Tinubu in 2027. More or less, technically, shutting out, the door and saying, that, it's slam dunk. The presidency is already won. The presidency is already won and lost.
Okay.
What's your view on this?
I try to allude to that, circumstance, because context is important. Yeah. You have the text, then you have the context. The density of history and all the environmental circumstances that marshal somebody's thought or somebody's, rhetoric, somebody's action. The vice president came with a fanfare in 2023. He even made a declaration in Lagos that I'm an expert on security. And the president is an expert in managing the economy. That's why Lagos is big. Yes. So he's going to focus on managing his economy. Exactly. Why I'm going to manage the security. I take charge of security. They may be watching him and say, this man, does he know the jobs of a vice president? He's actually a spare tire. He has no job, if he really speaking.
So you also agree that VPs are spare tires?
Essentially. The Constitution will provide a few things for you there, but it's at discretion of the president. Yeah. If you read his body language and it's unfavorable to whatever the Constitution said it should even be or do, you do the needful. And as I told you last year, there was this APC pan-national meetings and endorsements of the president for a second term. And in the Northeast, it was instructive that his name, the VP's name, was not even mentioned. That even the governor of Borno State screamed that aloud. I was among those intellectuals who went on the media and said, no, this is not the way you run the presidency. You don't bring this kind of divisiveness. It's a unified presidency. So the president had to take on the vice president going forward. And let us be honest about it. The Muslim ticket, then, of course, people oppose it, even still oppose it today, was a strategic construction. It was not an ideological formulation. This is a faith, civilizational and faith-driven something. If you're talking about Christian genocide or CPC designation, implicate the Buhari presidency far more than the Bola Ahmed Tinubu presidency. For those of us who want to be honest about this conversation, to say, is there any intent, is there any spirited effort on the part of this current presidency, to deepen the so-called Christian genocide? No, surely not. But there was some groundswell of movement, before his presidency, from the Buhari era, to somewhat create enabling environment for certain things to happen far more then. So in spite of the Buhari having a Christian-Muslim formulation and the Bola Ahmed Tinubu having a Muslim-Muslim formulation, one seems to be more intent in ideologizing this faith, disparate faith relationship than this current one. But then, Trump is there, locked in the shadow. CPC designation has occurred. So the VP is a man running scared. So expect that kind of language is to please the audience. I'm sure inside the villa, that's where the meeting held. The president may not be available there, but then his people are there watching him intently. So he needed to make the kind of statement that is very rash, very historical, and very unprovable. Even if you have only a tiny party called PRP, a smaller party called AAC or something, they have a candidate, they will run. To say nobody should even contest at all is beyond reason. There's going to be a contest in 2027, a very robust, very intense, a scorched-earth political warfare will unfold. Politicians are ghosts. I keep telling you that. If you move them this way, they're shadowy terrier figures. They move the other way. You can find there's a certain kind of movement into ADC. Take the Southeast, for example, with the likes of P2P, surging into ADC, and the lot forces in PDP, PNOB, Opimodo, the rest of them moving there, is to give the party some robust width. If P2P were to emerge as a candidate of ADC, then the conspiracy of South and solidarity will crumble rapidly. Because the Southeast will separate with portions of the South, and even Grand Lagos, Greater Lagos may heave. So the present own location within that southern belt will be diminished. He may take up the bulk of the Southwest outside Lagos that will be heavily contested. South will be heavily contested, Southeast is gone. Then the North may settle the battle, the political battle. So it is there. If you have Atiku, for example, emerging as a candidate of ADC, for example, and then you may now, have, and so that is empty in terms of contestation, because the president will be the only person, and PWB did not take any ticket, including level, and so on, for whatever it is worth. That scenario is still not yet with us. If PDP escapes its neighborhood challenges, the way money is going now, apparently it is working in that direction. One victory, another one. If it happens before May, when the INEC timetable will unfold before our eyes, and then they have the calendar, the cut-off time for parties to do nomination process, the PDP may have a rebound. If they find a situation where somebody disgusted with whatever has happened in ADC, I don't know, I'm going to say that, it hasn't happened, says, I have a new party called PDP, a very old one, present in every part of the country, as valuable to me to pick up. My contention is that the vice president spoke to please his audience. He spoke to preserve his seat. He didn't speak something that is rational, scientific, or logical.
Nice. Let's take a rider to that. You alluded to it, but let me ask you straight. So you do not mind, as an intellectual, public, intellectual, you do not mind a repeat of this Muslim ticket? And if you do mind, would you want a vice presidential candidate from the north, west, or northeast, or from the south?
For which party? APC?
APC, of course. APC.
Already
I'm talking about,
already the president is the candidate of the party.
Exactly.
To all intents and purposes.
Yes.
He'll be coronated at the convention of APC somewhere down the line, July, August, whenever INEC specifies. So his running mate must then come from the north. Not will or shall or may, but must come from the north.
Okay.
As he said in 2023, and everybody slammed it, I was one of those who went on the Muslim ticket stuff. Because it's a winning argument for portions of the north, the Christian north, that a Muslim vice president and a Muslim president from the south is a panacea for disaster for the Christian north. It's a very winning argument. And their counter argument from the APC side is that, look at the president, he's like a liberal Muslim. Look at the wife, he's a Christian. The Shetima has no history of this redentism or extremism and radical Islamization or something there. It's a strategy for us not to lose among the Muslim, majority Muslim population in the north. We can have a minority Muslim candidate in the south because Islam is marginal in the south. If you take south and southeast combined with the southwest, it's a very minority. And that's where the president is from. So if you take another minority in the north, it's a political suicide mission. It's a disaster. So we need to do this. That's their own argument. I'm not going to promote that argument. Now, the argument may be we have to repeat the same thing, but then the whole context of Nigerian political engagement has been globalized and comprehensively ideologized. You now find the CBC designation. You find American strike on Sokoto. You find the American boot on the ground, as we're hearing these days. You find everybody watching, and you find abductions of Christians in their churches. So to repeat the Muslim thing may not resonate well, not only locally, but globally. So the president will be searching for answers to this kind of acute question. Do I go northwest? If I go, where do I find a Christian in the northwest that will carry this burden? Maybe the current army chief of staff, who was just the other day. Minister of Defense was just army chief of staff, or defense, chief of defense staff now. Maybe it could be somebody there. I don't know who else. If I do northeast, is it the Dogora who is virtually campaigning now in the open, or somebody else there? If I go north central, what happens to the northeast and northwest axis, the so-called Kanuri and Fulani corridor? So it's a puzzle for them to solve, not for me to solve for them. I do know that the world is watching, the globe is watching, and the opposition parties are watching to pounce on whatever decision APC makes. So the VP is mindful of all these scenarios, churning all over the place. He needed to put his feet down, preserve his position, preserve the sanctity of this mandate, and then assure the president, men and women, that it's very loyal to him.
Brilliant. Dr. Hakeem Baba Ahmed, incidentally, former special advisor to the president, although in the office of the VP, has been in the media rounds, channels, Arise, and so on, stating quite unequivocally that the ADC, when they do have their primaries, presidential primaries, if the former vice president Atiku Abubakar clinches the ticket, the party is going to, implode, disintegrate, as it were, because the obedient movement, would not support a Peter Obi, number one, not clinching the ticket, nor even considering acceptance of VP running mate to. Now, the question is, why would Hakeem Baba Ahmed be going around doing this? Is he doing a hatchet job? Does he know what we don't know?
Have you called him, asked? Or do you have
That's what I'm
do you have
asking.
sex?
You're the public
Do you have
affairs-
sex to him?
you're the public
He's my
affairs
friend.
analyst.
If you want to have
Yes,
sex to him,
exactly.
I can
Why
provide
would you-
access.
why would
I
you
wouldn't
bring
know
around
because I've not spoken.
spreading
I've not.
this?
I just came back from the holidays.
Sir, Prof, you know why this is important? Some are actually alleging that it's a deliberate misinformation, ploy to sow seeds of discord, to plant discord in the minds of, some elements, especially the young turks, as it were.
ADC is yet to hold a primary election for the presidency because INEC has not unfolded its timetable. That will happen for me between late June, July, early August. Most likely, say they change the pattern from last time around. When that happens, as always, they tell me in the Southwest, Ayodebanjo will always tell me, Udenta. I say, Baba, don't cross a bridge until you get there. You cross that bridge when you get there. And again, be very, very strict in matters of principle, but very, very flexible in matters of tactics and strategy. I've learned that. Principle is inviolate. And then strategy and tactics, very many, we can always meander around those elements and not to get where you're getting to. Until ADC does the needful, they can begin now to say, this has happened and this is going to be consequences of this action. But before then, what one can say is this. PDP, under the leadership of Bala Mohammed, chairman of the Governors Forum, took a decision to zone the presidency to the south. Mindful of the lesson of 2023, when the G5 governors, led by Yeson Wike, current minister of FCT, revolted and said, we're going to work for a certain president and deliver him. Because Buhari was in office for 8 years. El-Rufai, former governor, Nasir El-Rufai, former governor of Kaduna State, who maybe contributed more than most, to getting the current president into the shape he was in to get to that seat. Said it, I will have supported the president, Buhari, to have a northerner succeed, but it's morally unforgivable. The moral contours are very important. The imperatives of ethics and imperative that undergird it is very important in our political direction. To really the appetite of the political elite is vital. Constrain that appetite to say, we have a country that is complex, full of fault lines, diverse in nature. You must move this thing here and there, whether it is constitutionalized or not. So 8 years of Buhari presidency had to produce 8 years of a certain presidency. That's why Jonathan, in a sense, lost election 2015 because of this urging from the north. The PDP governors worked out on him there, Atiku worked out, Saraki worked out, and so on. So if you now have a PDP again, very indeliberate in terms of the choice of the zone of the presidency, another problem will loom. That's why President Mohammed, the governor of Bauchi State, chairman on the phone, said, let's take it to the south. They took it to the south. They didn't solve their problem outright, but they said, let's take it down there. So for ADC hesitating to pronounce unequivocally that the presidency is zoned to the south is a problem. It doesn't need a Hakim Baba to tell the world that if you have the Bola Tinubu as a president from the south, you needed somebody from the south for another 4 years to terminate in 2031. If you don't do it and have a northern guy to be the candidate of ADC in 2027, bingo, you are losing the entire south. It doesn't need, I said it on television many times. There's no way a northerner can win 10% of the vote in any of the 17 states in the south today. Whoever you are, whoever you manufacture as a running mate, that's why P2B knows it. He can't be a running mate to anybody because his support structure base will crater completely. So you need a southern guy in order to do what? Diminish the import of the southern solidarity. Let the north now play the big brothers role, settle this battle between two southern brothers or so. If you don't do it, I don't need Hakim Baba to tell me on television that the ADC is going to suffer irreparable damage, particularly in the south. And he needed, and again, you don't even have a holistic, monolithic north to say, as a candidate from the north, I have the 19 states with me. No, that's not true. You don't have Wara with you. You don't have Kogi with you. You don't have FCT with you. You don't have Benue with you. You don't have Plateau with you. You don't have portions of Taraba with you. You don't have portions of Kaduna. There are many states in the north. You can't even say, I can close my eyes and go to bed and I'll win. So a guy who are taking 17 in the south grabs FCT, good number, that's 20. Grab Wara, grabs Kogi, that's 22. Grab Benue, grab Plateau. He just missed 1 or 2. And there's more scatterings of vote across the entire, Kaduna, the Fulani corridor and the Kanuri corridor. Bingo, he's won. So he's saying something that is empirically verifiable, logically sequenced, and rational.
What would you say, just in 1 or 2 minutes, what would you say, sir, to those who argue that this north-south arrangement is actually an understanding? It is not constitutional. There's no legal foundation to it.
Which is true.
That is one. And secondly, this argument of fixation on north-south arrangement shuts out the door against merit.
It doesn't do that.
So why don't we just say, hold on, sir, why don't you just say, everybody who's interested, go on and contest.
You can't do that.
Let the best man emerge.
We haven't gotten to that level in our development, evolution as a country. The first one is that it is, I said it earlier, it is not constitutionalized. Why didn't Obasanjo pick somebody from Owo as his running mate? Somebody from Enugu. Why did he go to Adamawa to pick Atiku? Really was actually being vetted. Maybe Banga Tuko, maybe Shiroma. And say, for the presidency, so here is Falaye from the southwest, Shinkafi from Zamfara, if I'm not mistaken, Obasanjo from Ogun State. This other one from Adamawa, Obasanjo comes and said, you're right. Olawale, you're right. My running mate will be from Osun State. What's wrong with that? You didn't think anything was wrong with it. Because as you say, it's not constitutionalized. Common sense is beyond constitution. Sense of forbearance. It can't be made a constitution blinded like a fetish. Constitution is a guide. When they say a country is made up of 4 lines, as I said, cultural, ethnic, linguistic, faith, 4 lines. The country is diverse and heterogeneous in nature, and you're picking somebody from your zone, from your base, from a demographic, because there's no constitutional structure not to do so. You don't try that. The second one, I said it on television, many platforms. My village of Mbo, in our local government area of Enugu State, we have not less than 25 to 30 practicing professors. Small village. Virtually every field of human endeavor, every sphere and domain of human existence. We have over 100 PhDs. We have engineers and doctors. We can form 3 federal cabinets in my village. If you like, hold another conversation on this, and I'll give you the names and qualifications for my village alone. I'm not saying from my local government. So this theory, this myth, this fable, that zoning constraints the issue of a capacity and experience, is not true. Every village in the country is brimful with talent, men and women, deeply and proudly endowed to run this country, run these apparatuses, run these bureaucracies. So there's no contradiction in that.
Recently, you argued, you stated publicly that the AFCC has become a tool in the hands of the government to do their bidding. Going after opposition political figures all the time, like Governor Bala Mohammed, Malami, and the rest of them, even Chris Nguge. Immediately they get granted him bail. The next moment was at the villa, where APC were having to play loyalty and all of that. So, is it true? Is it perception, or is there any substance to it that the anti-corruption agencies have become an extension of the campaign strategy of the ruling political?
Let's put it this way. EFCC was born, if I'm not mistaken, in 2004.
Exactly.
Roughly around that period. And has had many chairmen, from the current NSA, or the founding chairman, and then to the whole, Farida, Lemonde, and Magu, and the Bawa, and then this one there. If you check the history of EFCC, and the history of interface, interconnectedness of, fight against or war against corruption and economic crimes and political power. You have deep intersections in the past. It's not even a crime of only the ruling party today. When PDP was in power, EFCC wasn't innocent. Let's face it.
Yeah.
It wasn't not innocent. Either the people in the PDP were rebels, we are gone down, pressure was put on them. And those who want to become rebel in future, place them notice. Then opposition people too, equally had their own share of traumas, and problems, and stress and pressure. So now you have a new EFCC. My only worry is don't messianize your role as a chairman of EFCC. Don't come on television and tell us that you're above board. There's no partisan implication. It may not be overt or direct, but somehow you have an interface as an interconnection or intersect between political power, the search for it, political contestation, and the war against financial crime and corruption. There's no doubt whatsoever. And that's why with regard to that of Bauchi said, I said it was awful for EFCC to single out a sitting governor and then use his name injudiciously. You're not going to try him or prosecute him, but he used it injudiciously in a manner that was just designed for maximum damage. So thing approved by name. That means we're putting it on record for the world to see this man actually be a terror financer when you knew there's no content to that particular issue you are raising, to that particular, the context of these charges completely have no bearing in history on record, but it needed the name to appear. Even EFCC cannot even prosecute terror financing. He can't. Yeah. It took Buhari 8 years, couldn't publish the list. Bola Ahmed Tinubu presidency, 2.5 years, can't publish the list of those financing terror. 10 years and a half. Then 1 week, when a judge demanded of you to produce somebody in court, then he manufactured it to simply say, we can't release them now because of terrorist financing. That's just the gamble. That's tried by media. He can smuggle in certain things to the court and say, hold somebody with this. When we are ready for a better charge, we can withdraw the earlier one. That's not the way you go about this kind of business. But as I said, common sense, I'm sure, may have to prevail. The chairman of EFCC need to focus more, in a clinical, forensic approach to managing this issue of war against corruption and crime, and leave those sensitive political decisions that could give the wrong signal to intent or motive why such things are being done. If you do that, and again, I'm mindful of the fact that the timetable is against EFCC and the government. It happens everywhere, even in the US. Why is Donald Trump going after banks and other entities? Because he said, you are weaponizing financial institutions against me because of my politics. So he said, if I won a case in social place, the one the charges against him, the one in Atlanta, the one in New York, the one in Florida, a time will come when the prosecution will hands off and said, we can no longer prosecute this matter because of the political implication. A time will come, that's why Donald Trump in 2023 or 24 declared for the presidency. He had multiple issues on his neck. But declaring means if I win the primary election, the judicial system will back off and said, to go further on me is politicizing the coming election. They're giving advantage to the Democratic Party candidate in waiting. That's why today, EFCC can no longer meaningfully intervene in the politics of the now, because to do so will be to pick opposition governor today will simply be to service the interests of the ruling party. That's the way it is designed. It again not constitutionalized, but you know that the timetable is upon us. If INEC now unfold the timetable and you pick up a governor or a leading figure in the position, people will cry blue mud and say, you are doing it because you want to do what? Embarrass them morally, diminish their standing, their uprightness, and their ethical contours ahead of the coming election. So I suspect that EFCC should be guided in this regard. There are many other things the EFCC can be doing. Many fraudsters could be chasing. Many people have violated, the laws of finance and accounting and so on there. The corporate players there, their bankers and so on. Focus on that now. Leave this political terrain for now. I'm not saying don't leave it for life. For now, because the transition is upon us. Any move you make will attract vicious counter-response from the other side. And that is what it should be, given the circumstance of now.
Some counter-argument. I hear you, and I'm sure our viewers and listeners also hear you. And EFCC definitely is listening. Particularly, and I agree with you that the EFCC does not have the backing of the law to prosecute terrorism charges. That's the DSS. But the counter-argument, like I said, the fact that someone has a clear intention to vie for political office. Of course, I'm not talking about Bala Mohammed, sitting governor, has immunity. You can investigate. The Constitution says you can investigate quietly, discreetly.
Don't dramatize it.
Exactly. Don't embarrass him. And all of that. Yes. But you can investigate. And when he leaves office, you can prosecute it. But Malami's case is different. Do we now say, if I hear you very well, do we now say because a high-profile, person has declared intention to vie for political office, yet there is prima facie evidence of large-scale, colossal, stealing, looting of our public resources. Do we now say because of that, the anti-corruption agency does not, hold on, sir, do not do their job? Mind you, once this guy is allowed, because we say we don't want to draw the eye of the public, now this guy gets contest and wins, he has immunity for at least 8 years. What do you say to this, sir?
I said, EFCC have to do its job, but they do it mindful of the political environment. Okay. It is not what I, as Udenta or Udenta, is saying. It is what is going to be deposited out there. Well, in this case, it's not even for me a clear court case of political interference. He's a private citizen. He may have the interest to contest for something or not contest for something. And the time they went after him was last year, late last year. That's good enough time to continue what you're doing. But at the end of the day, you're not going to rush a trial. Let's put it this way. You grab a Malami, keep him there for 2 weeks, release him. EFCC pick him, a DSS picked him. Maybe another 1 month. They have to release him. It's a bailable offense. It's not a murder, not a capital offense. You release him. Here's the team of lawyers, maybe 35 sons and another 55 other solid lawyers, making almost 80. There are many courts to go to. Get injunction here, get another one there, about 30 injunctions up to Supreme Court. He has enough time to come out and contest his election. It's part of whatever EFCC does. He can't keep him in detention in perpetuity. That's against the law. And the moment he comes out, he's an innocent man until proven guilty. That's That's my point. He's innocent on his proven guilty.
Yeah.
No matter how the scale of investigation or depositing out things in the public and revelations about what he must have acquired, he's still innocent. That's what the law says. So, however you even do it, he can't even succeed because he can't keep a man in detention. If you pick up somebody in July who's already a candidate of another party for governorship, at most 1 week or 3 weeks, you release him. You are making his day for him. That's why they pick me up. I'm a candidate. I'm going to be the governor. Who is APC? They know that very well. They know I'm innocent. They are just coming after me to destroy my career. You whip up public sentiment even. So the law doesn't hurry. The windmills of the gods grind slowly, but they grind exceedingly well. Ventures in law may be dish eating when it is very cold. Don't over dramatize this. You grab him or her, especially when the opposition party people in an election season. If you do so, you are creating enormous crisis crisis of judgment and governance, crisis of conscience, crisis of morality and ethics around the neck of EFCC.
When I have this conversation with intellectuals, high, caliber intellectuals such as yourself, these are some of the dilemma I face because you glamorize, you glamorize intellect, which is beautiful. But this our environment, Sambo Dasuki Fama was kept in detention for years by former President Buhari, damning several court verdicts. Nnamdi Kanu was released by a certain court and all of that. The government refused to release it.
I understand.
So, and I could give you several other cases, but I don't want us to do all of that. Let's make progress.
You can do that. You see, it's always Sambo Dasuki. But Mustafa.
Absolutely.
Okay,
I have got
now,
Mustafa.
there are many things that go beyond EFCC. If you look at the issue of Dasuki, I don't think it was EFCC. It's more of DSS.
Yeah, exactly.
That means when it deals with national security,
Exactly.
they don't put it that you stole money. Really, national security that can have so many leverages with which they can put you away for long. Even what the court said, they can keep on telling another court. It's a state risk to risk the survival of the Nigerian state. Look at the position he had. This one was CSO, exactly. This one was NSA to Jonathan. As absurd as it is, this one is the leader of a Biafran redentist resistance movement. Be careful, the courts. Be careful what you do. The country is under the verge of collapse because of the entities like this. I know it is wrong, it is awful, it is detestable, but they can manage it. What is the pure case of EFCC and money hunting? They can't do it.
That's why I would reckon that is why in their own craftiness, don't even say wisdom, they have exactly. They've tied that to it. Exactly. But let's make progress, Prof. Recently you also said the government, the President Bola Ahmed Tinubu's government, is intellectually challenged in terms of policy, more or less governance. But they are very astute when it comes to power retention, raw power grab. They are very astute.
And you have to respect that.
Shed more light on this.
You have to respect that as much as you detect the other quality, which you pointed out, which I've said several times. And always give me as an example that why is he denying people the kind of opportunities that he himself grabbed? You should even teach them how to grab these opportunities. Or maybe you do that post-presidency. If he wins 2027, nobody says he's going to win. Because in 2003, he put his feet down. He mobilized the people who were prepared to resist, if need be physically, to keep his mandate protection. He believed that in so much. Believed in that so much. So, but now you find a situation where, like the governor of your state said a few days ago, this particular government brooks no
very prone to any form of criticism.
That was even like looking at Steve Banjo and saying, we should have that kind of error of this vice president, the way things were done then. So that's a sense of angst, sense of discomfiture about the system. It's not a conversation about governance, about principles of politics and bureaucracy and technocracy. No, it's all about power. So if you came in 2023 and then dropped these bombshells, one, of subsidy is gone without consultation. It didn't even bring the political elite to that conversation. It didn't build that elite consensus that will now lead to national consensus. Exactly. You now did all that, the flotation of the naira in 2-3 months down the line. And now with these tax laws that people are saying, hold on this thing. It took a while for you to get it out together, even to National Assembly. The governors forum of the North and South, National Economic Forum, everybody said, take your time on this matter. Don't rush it. He rushed it. This laws came out there with discrepancies, multiple versions there. It's still saying we're going to press on with it. So that means at the level of policies, which you have mostly neoliberal, policies of Washington consensus to please, of course, the imperialist West. This government is focused in those areas that without even considering the dislocating effect, in terms of living standards of the people. Because when you have this mindset that macroeconomic numbers are good, or inflationary pressures are coming down, this is not translating to what people feel every day. The sense of economic anxiety, the loss of economic potential and purchasing power. Those things are very acute. You and I face them every day in our lives. Now, when it comes to politics, you don't find the same sense of laissez-faire. You find a firm, clear understanding that power is important and imperative to survival. Find clear that the vice president could tell the nation almost a year plus an election, do not come to contest this particular election. This one is done. Go for 2031. And there is that intent, that sense of mobilization of power and resources to say, we have to make it work. PDP from its towering height as a lead opposition party must be humbled and decapitated by all means necessary. ADC now is really having a good time, but they don't know what they have in store for it down the line. SDP and Labour Party have their deep institutional and structural challenges, most of the time created from outside. So there's a deliberate intent on the part of the powers that be today to shut down political conversation, diminish the political space, and make the contestation 2027 almost, a done deal.
Let me ask you, Prof, what's your assessment of the state of governance? What's your assessment on the state of governance in Nigeria under this? Because that also ties in to your question, to the previous question on being intellectually challenged, because that's on policy, that's actually governance.
The state of governance,
with reference to the economy.
Yes, it's something which I have deposited in the public domain for upwards of 2 years now. 2024 was March Against Hunger and Bad Governance. That didn't end well. It became violent. Lives were lost. Minors, people who were underage, were arrested, detained for weeks, if not months, before a court compelled their release because someone started collapsing. So that would tell you the level, of viciousness of the state apparatus. Sometimes, via, some sort of unbridled enthusiasm by the security agencies, not even with clear direction from the political power holders. If you ask the president or his team, they do direct them to pick up minors and detain them and what they all would have food. They say, well, we can't do that. If you find such an instance, we discipline those people there. That may be the answer. But the fact that young people could be part of anti-hunger, anti-bad governance, the fact that inflationary pressures have not diminished, in spite of what the statistic board will tell you. The fact that if you're a minimum wage earner of 70, 75, 80,000, you can't survive even for a week. If you look at the transportation system without mass transportation, without even a robust public mass transit system, even in Abuja, for example, you need to either use Uber or boat and so on there. It consumes your resources, possibly 60%. Absolutely, risk involved. If you look at the education cost, if you look at the cost of medicine, we have a lot of comorbidities, underlying conditions, either diabetics or high blood pressure, hypertensive issues, post-treat matters there. It's impossible to get people treated or have the resources to buy the correct drugs. So in almost all these areas of life that concern the people, critical areas of life there, this economy is awful. It's in a bad state. That does not diminish whatever result you give us at the macroeconomic level to say this is going to happen in the next 1 or 2 years. That's why I gave the initial example of Enugu State, where I am from, and where I visited substantially this past time around. I said, there's a new beginning, a technocratic new beginning, driven by innovation. Smart school, hotels popping up everywhere, Enugu airline, in the city clean up, infrastructure rebuilt, and so on. Much more revenue coming to the government, and ability of the governor to mobilize resources in this direction. Possibly, the politics itself is doubtful to say, is this platform that is new going to lead to that? Some people are saying there are some tensions between innovation, disruption, for development, and immediate pain. Are we feeling more immediate pain? Are we overtaxed? Are we paying more than? Or are the results they're going to overwhelm this immediate discomfort to say, in a year or 2 years' time, when all these things have been balanced out, this place is going to be an Eldorado. That seems to be the message the government is sending to the people, that if there's any pain or pinch now, it's temporary. Because I have to redirect, redesign, restructure the entirety of the state governance and economic apparatus in order to deliver for you and your children, your grandchildren, a better state than you could ever imagine. At the national level, are we seeing that sense of coherence? I don't think we're seeing that coherence at the national level there, as I saw in Enugu when I went there. So it is important that when the pain is on the people, there's a timeline and a timetable for the end of pain to say, we now have that in the next quarter or 2 quarters, not in terms of theoretical macroeconomic formulations or statistics, practical evidence that things are really coming down and the people are having a better life.
Is there a problem with an African, not just in Nigeria now, to govern? Are we capable of self-governance? Because 65 years as Nigeria, 65 years post-independence, no schools, public schools are almost practically non-existent. We still lack power access. How do you industrialize without power? How? Healthcare, just like you said. Even not just healthcare, because that's broad. Primary healthcare. And then infrastructure like roads, transportation, and the list goes on. If we are still having these basic challenges, 65 years, is there a problem with us self-governing ourselves?
I think democracy has 2 attributes: universal, purpose or values or conditions, and then local or indigenous requirements. We've only focused on one: the importation of presidential system under the agency of liberal democracy, a liberal democratic model. We tried in '99. It didn't work for 4 years. We are trying again for 26 years. In terms of endurance, it has endured. Survival, maybe survived. In terms of its manifestation, the product, what are we practically
Dividends of
doing?
democracy.
The democracy is not working. The first 6 years was under the parliamentary system and government we took from the British. So I think we need to design a model that speaks to our history, speaks to our civilizational evolution, speaks to our sense of being Africans and Nigerians. That's where our scholars, our thinkers, our intellectuals need to really begin to put on their thinking cap and say, are we going to walk through a liberal democratic order that seems alien to our sense of identity, our ontological force, our sense of epistemology? How do we form knowledge? What do you understand about the universe? How this is all integrated within this humongous system we have, presidential system, very, very, big, massive bureaucracy, that the governor may have about 2,000 aides, Senate president may have about 50 cars in convoy, all legally provided for. Do we really need all that? Do we need even competitive politics? Do we need a politics of consensus and cooperation like in China? Obasanjo did that in 1989 when he talked about Constitution for National Integration and Development, when a one-party state sort of, but not the kind of one-party we're talking about, a consensual one-party state. He said African history and civilization actually is anathema to this kind of vicious inter-party contestation and struggle that could lead to corruption, corrupt practices, electoral fraud. Let us sit down, council of elders, youth, women, former leaders, former chief of the Supreme Court, the chief of the Supreme Court, etc. Let's have some framework where everybody has a role to play, but everybody's working in one direction. That could be a model. People are now thinking that let's think liberal democratic moment in Africa. It does not yield any kind of result, practical result people expect it to yield. That's one way to look at it. Because to go outside this frame, we spend a lot of time in breaking down all the different domains of space or the parts of liberal democracy that will take us outside this conversation.
And you did very well. You summarized it. You predicted that the APC might weaken, as we move towards 2027 general elections due to its own internal struggles and all of that.
It's obesity.
Exactly. Where do you see the cracks? Where do you see the possible cracks coming from?
Flatulence, what I mean, when you overeat.
Overfed.
You overfed, you become flatulent. You're gorging so many things, gobbling up APC, the ADC, the PDP, everywhere. So at the time, PDP did it. When Jonathan, former President Jonathan contested the election, or re-election in 2015, PDP was, maybe I'm sure, had 28 governors or thereabout, and a massive number in national state assemblies. He didn't win. So by the time he finished the primary, that's why parties wait for the big one to do the primary. If INEC has a window of 2 months or 1 month to finish a primary in a certain direction, maybe governorship, you discover that people wait for APC to put on the primary first. They do it there. There are about 15 people per state who want the governorship and they qualified. Former governors, sitting governors, former senators, some senators there. Only one will emerge. The other 15 are not going to wait. They will not wait for anybody to tell them 2031, 2035. Which other party is next in line? PDP has survived these legal challenges. ADC is locking the shadow there. So let us go there. By the time we now have the cast of characters going to contest the presidency, the Senate, the reps, the governorship, it will be balanced. Because there will be massive movement entry and re-entry and escape from the major parties to other ones there. So at the end of the day, everything that balances out. So sorry, Vice President Shetima, I ain't going to get a one-party state. I'm going to get contested against Bola Tinubu, our sitting president, and we don't know what the outcome will be.
What's the future of Nigeria as well?
The future of Nigeria is not something which we can...
Some are saying Nigeria should go back to parliamentary
it's not
system.
It's not something we can reasonably handle within the time left for us there. The country's future is a product of the willingness of the people who constitute this space, just your political space, how to deal with it.
Yeah.
If you have leadership that is completely absent from the frame of the people's imagination and consciousness, or inalert to the basic conditions of existence, the future is not very guaranteed. I don't know when that will happen. Maybe 10 years, maybe 200 years. We have a government that is deliberate in its choice and intention in improving the life of the people. Human development index, human security, human infrastructure built up, and the future becomes very, very guaranteed. That's what one can say. But future scenario building is important. Future planning, not 10 years, 50 years, 100 years. What will the country look like? Because of education, simulating this scenario up there to have thinkers to go into the future to say, in 50 years, what will the population be? What will be the distribution, intersectional growth rate? What will it be with public infrastructure? What will happen to education, health, and so on? How do you plan for that? I think any government in power should have this at the back of its mind.
We will come back and deal with this. Definitely.
Fantastic.
Nice having you on the program.
It's a pleasure.
Professor Udenta.
It's a pleasure to
It's
meet
been a
you.
pleasure having you, sir.
Thank you so much.
Thank you very much.
Okay.